Is there every evidence that the refugees are coming to, quote, wage jihad, as Senator Ted Cruz said?
No, but I think we have to start, Chris, by acknowledging that people are rattled, particularly by what they saw in Paris over the weekend. And, you know, I'm getting lots of calls from Maine about Syrian refugees. But as I got back to town, I started to dig into it and found out that since 2011, just over 2,000 Syrian refugees have come into this country, but they've been through a process that lasts 18 months to 2 years. If a terrorist wants to come to the United States, going as a refugee would be about the hardest way to get in here. The problem is, Chris, and I don't know if you've talked about it earlier this evening, but the real issue that I'm concerned about is the visa waiver program, whereby people from 38 countries around the world, including most of those in Western Europe, can come to this country with no visa, no check, no vetting whatsoever. It takes 24 months for a Syrian refugee and, 24 hours to come from Belgium or France or Germany into this country under the visa waiver program. And guess how many people how many entries there were under the visa waiver program last year? 20 million. So we're talking about passing a bill at about 2,000 people in the last 3 years, and I think the real threat is under the visa waiver program. That's where I think we should be directing our attention.
We should note here, this gets at something I think key here. As of yet, everyone identified involved in the attack has been a European national. They've had European citizenship, whether in Belgium or in France. Those two countries qualifying for the visa waiver program, they could fly into JFK. Why do you think that so much emphasis has been placed on refugees as opposed to, say, Western European nationals?
Well, I think part of it was that the way the story unfolded over the weekend, one of the guys had a passport they said he may have been a Syrian refugee that came through Greece. We're not even sure of that. But I think that sort of caught hold, and then it just became a firestorm. But, going after the refugees instead of the visa waiver program is like us attacking Brazil after Pearl Harbor. I mean, it's a vigorous response, but it's the wrong target.
What is your reaction to watching the rhetoric that is being employed by some of your colleagues in the Senate? I mean, talking about these people who are fleeing, I think what is by all accounts one of the most awful places in the world, punishing and violent, as people, quote, wanting to wage jihad or people seeking welfare. What's your response to that kind of language?
I think it's disappointing, and the fact is, if you want to radicalize people, leave them in a refugee camp somewhere. That's where the radicalization will take place. Now, I do think it's sensible that if people are coming here from Middle Eastern countries that have been involved in this kind of conflict, they've come under the influence of this radical ideology, it makes sense to really be careful about it. But, I think the idea, in fact, of those 2,000 people I mentioned, something like 3/4 are women, children, and the elderly. So, I think we got to try to stick to the facts here. And it's disappointing to see this kind of, who can be more anti-refugee, and a lot of the same people were, last year it was kids coming across the border from Mexico, and before that it was some other group, and 100 years ago it was Catholics, and, that's the kind of thing that we got to worry about.
All right, Senator Angus King, great thanks.